Welcome back to ACCS8. Now, moving towards the most awaited session of today, I would like to invite two distinguished personalities who are meticulous in their fields. Professor Nithin Nagaraj from NIS Bangalore and Professor Veeky from BITS-Pilani, Goa. Professor Nithin Nagaraj is currently an associate professor at Consciousness Studies Program, National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bangalore. He has a background in nonlinear dynamics, chaos theory, and information science. His current areas of research are scientific theories of consciousness, brain-inspired artificial intelligence, and causality testing in neuroscience. He has several international peer-reviewed journals and conference publications in these areas. He is a co-editor of the volume titled Self, Culture and Consciousness, Interdisciplinary Convergence on Knowing and Being, published by Springer Nature in 2018. He has also worked as a professor at Department of Electronics and Communications, Amrita School of Engineering, Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham, Amritapuri campus. Our second host of Fireside Chat session is Professor Veeky. He received his PhD degree from Birla Institute of Technology and Science, Pilani. He then obtained an MBA from Goa Institute of Management. Currently, he is working as an associate professor and heading the Cognitive Neuroscience Lab at BITS-Pilani, Goa campus. He has received many prestigious national and international research grants, such as iBrain. He is an honorary board member of the Association for Reading and Writing in Asia, ARWA. The aim of ARWA is to enhance interactions among researchers who are learning difficulties in reading and writing of Asian languages. He is founding member of the Society for the Cognitive Science of Culture, SCSC. The society aims to understand the human mind and how cultural objects like literacy, religion, including those within culture at macro level, can shape the human brain and mind. His research interests include computational psycholinguistics and Alzheimer's dementia detection from spontaneous speech using machine learning, brain-computer interface, consumer neuroscience, and brand perception. With a long list of their achievements and glory, I heartily invite Professor Nithin Nagaraj and Professor Veeky to host the Fireside Chat session, NeuroBytes.
Namaste and welcome to all. Thank you, Mahima, for that very generous introduction. I'm very happy to welcome Veeky as well to be a co-host for this session. And before we begin, I think both Veeky and I would like to first congratulate Shyam and his team for pulling off a wonderful conference for the past 3 days. Outstanding set of lectures and keynote speakers and poster sessions and very, very well organized. So congrats to Shyam on that. And thank you for inviting us for this session. Just to, before we begin, I think I'll tell all the audience that there's not a session which is very technical in nature, though of course we will discuss ideas from neuroscience and AI. It's more in the spirit of a chat, informal chat. And so let's begin. Shall we, Veeky?
Yes, Nithin. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So Veeky, why don't we start with you? You could just briefly tell us about the kind of research that you are involved in your lab, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. Thank you so much, Shyam, and thank you, Nithin. Thank you, Mahima, for the kind introduction. Before talking about what we do at Cognitive Neuroscience Lab at BITS Goa campus, I'd like to congratulate Shyam for organizing this wonderful conference. And yesterday I was listening to Kenji Doya, and I could see the number of participation there. So it's not that easy, to organize event at this level, and that too during this crisis time. So once again, congratulations, Shyam, for organizing this. And our Cognitive Neuroscience Lab, currently we are working on 4 important areas. First one is about home automation and regulation, and also wheelchair automation based on EEG signals produced in the brain. And we are using SSVP-based brain-computer interface technology to do the automation. And as you know, that brain-computer interface is a technology which completely bypasses the brain's normal output pathway of peripheral nerves and muscles. And this is the only technology by which a person who is whole body paralysis or ALS and spinal cord injury, they can use this technology to interact and communicate with their home environment. And we are using SSBP-based BCI technology. And the beauty of this technology is that it gives high information transfer rate and high signal to noise ratio. The second project is on consumer neuroscience, where we do lots of NLP, CNN, LSTM, and opinion mining and sentiment analysis of consumer data, and we extract those data from the social media platform. And at the same time, it's like where the cognitive cognition component comes. We analyze this, we compute the sentiment score, and then we fuse this data with EEG. And finally, we try to build a multimodal scheme to find what consumer wants and what is their likings and disliking. So this is about the consumer neuroscience project, which currently we are working on. And I'm also consulting one industry on consumer neuroscience. The third project is on computational psycholinguistics, where we are using deep learning to detect dementia from spontaneous speech. So in dementia, it's not only the memory gets disrupted, the linguistic skills also gets disrupted. And so we are using the conversational transcripts and speech data to detect dementia using deep learning. And the fourth one, which we have started recently, which is, I think, is very, very interesting, and everybody knows about now, metaverse and augmented reality based technology we are developing, and we are developing it for dementia care. And for that, I'd like to show you a small video of what we are doing. We have just started this work, and we are trying to build smart AR and AI system for dementia care. So let me just share the screen. Now both sound and video is there, right?
Both are fine.
मिल गया मैं अभी मीटिंग में हूँ थोड़ा देर बाद बताता हूँ ठीक है 9823 मेरा मोबाइल ले लो मैं 1 घंटा बाद बात करूँगा मीटिंग में 1 घंटा बाद कॉल कीजिए ठीक है प्लीज So getting back to this, we have just started this work, and we have developed some of the augmented reality-based tools for dementia care. And the name of this product is Dwarka, so stands for Dementia Care with Augmented Reality. And we are like still working on this. And you know, as you know, that augmented reality is technology which introduces a virtual object in the real world, thus enhancing the user's perception of reality. So we are using both AI and augmented reality to, you know, address like spatial navigation problem. And then there are different gamified solutions also for people having dementia. So this is what we do currently in our labs. Over to you, Nithin. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, Vicky, that was very insightful. So I know that you work with AI quite a bit. So in your opinion, what do you think, how can neuroscience inspire AI?
Okay, yeah, so it's a very good question, Nithin. I know now, before answering your question on a lighter note, you know, Once Elon Musk was asked by a reporter, "Are you really concerned about the increase in artificial intelligence?" And he replied, "No, but I am deeply concerned about the decrease in real intelligence." So it was on lighter note, but coming back to your question, now AI, machine learning, deep learning, reinforcement learning, statistical learning, now it's a buzzword everywhere and everybody is getting into it. All industry guys, they are getting into it. They are investing the time, energy, and lots of money into it. And if you ask me, and if we look at the or analyze the history, you'll find all AI, machine learning, deep learning, reinforcement learning, they're founding fathers, they took ideas from neuroscience. So most of these ideas came from ideas and information. It came from neuroscience only. And coming back specifically to a specific answer to your question is how neuroscience inspires artificial intelligence. So there are two ways by which neuroscience inspires us to build smart AI system. One that emulates human intelligence, and second one is to build neural network which mimics brain structure. Now, again, while talking about artificial intelligence, then if I am not mentioning Elon Musk, it will be very, like injustice to what he has done. So there are systems like, there are smart AI systems that emulates human intelligence. The best example is self-driving car and what Tesla is doing, right? So it's a reliable object recognition by self-driving cars. So who would have thought about this self-driving car some 20 years back? So now it's a reality because of the complete development and advancement in the field of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. Other example, we can have like breast cancer detection, like faster, better than doctors can do, right? And the same time, I'll also like to tell you that there is similarities between your artificial neuron and biological neuron, right? So you have the input layer, hidden layer, output layer, then you have dendrites, cell bodies, synapse, stuff like that. So there is a similarities, and also how human attention works, or how like how you recognize objects. Let's say if you are looking at a picture of dog, you know that it's a dog because you have seen lots of dogs in your life. At the same time, if you feed your neural network with lots of dog images, then it will recognize that it's a dog image. So neuroscience is really like artificial intelligence took most of these ideas from neuroscience, but at the same time, artificial intelligence is helping in advancing neuroscience research or to understand how brain works. Like we have tons of data, fMRI data, or EEG data, or eye tracking data on public platforms. So you have smart AI systems or machine learning tools and deep learning tools to analyze those data and to give you a better information, like our better understanding of how human brain works. So finally, I'd like to conclude by saying that there should be, we should allow the complete flow of information between both these fields so that both the fields should grow. Thank you, and over to you, Nithin.
Yeah, Vicky. So other thing that I know that you work on quite passionately is on consumer neuroscience and AI. So can you just tell us why marketers are excited about neuroscience and neuroimaging, this interface between consumer neuroscience and AI?
Yeah. So thank you again. This is also a very interesting question, and which is like, like every day you'll find one startup coming up in the business of AI and marketing. Now everything at the end of the day, it boils down to marketing. You want to sell something, right? And all top brains of this world, they're busy in doing only one thing. They will make you to click something, right? And once you click something, you are leaving a digital trail on the public platform, and it becomes, big thing for these guys, okay? All machine learning, deep learning, reinforcement learning guys, they are looking for that kind of data on public platform. So conventional marketing methodologies, they rely heavily on, consumer feedback, right? So if a marketer wants to know how people perceive about their product or service, so they will do, they will send some questionnaire and to know the feedback of people, like what is the perception about my product or service in the market. So they will target the focus group. They will have one-to-one interview. They'll send the questionnaire. Okay. They'll give the feedback form, and they want to know, hey, what is your feedback about my particular product or service? All these methods are fine, but these are not that robust. Okay. These are not that robust, but when you use neuroimaging, because people might like your product, but they might fake. Okay. So, but once you use neuroscience or neuroimaging, then it's very difficult to fake. Okay. So coming back to your question very specifically, like why marketers are excited about neuroimaging and neuroscience. So marketers are excited about neuroscience and neuroimaging for two reasons. The first one is about articulation. So people, they are not very articulate, they're not articulate enough to express their true preferences to, about a particular product or service when they are asked to express. And their brain contains hidden information which can be used to influence their buying behavior. The second reason is marketers strongly believe that this methodology will provide them an innovative tool which can be used even before the product exists in the market. Okay, so this is how, like, marketers are now getting into this neuroscience business also and neuroimaging business also. Now the other part, coming to the other part, what earlier people are doing and what we are planning to do, and which very few people have achieved. Like I told you that every now and then you see new startup coming up. Okay, and these startups are mainly in the business of providing market insights or market intelligence to their customers. So I know a few companies. I work for two companies, and I know these companies, they have big clients like Google, Facebook, or they have clients like Amazon or Walmart, right? So this company, what they do and what we also do in our lab, we are also into natural language processing, sentiment analysis, and opinion mining from the social media data, right? So the social media has become a war zone. Every marketer wants to grab the eyeballs, and every marketer wants that people should notice my thing, my product, my service on this platform. Okay. So there are social networking sites like Facebook, you have LinkedIn. Okay. Then you have microblogging sites like Twitter, you have Reddit, Quora. Okay. So what these guys do and what we are also like doing is we are extracting this information from the Facebook. We are extracting this information from Twitter about any product or services. Okay, there are review forums. People write something about their experience, about their feeling, about their perception about the product or services. So we mine those information and we use NLP. Okay, when we do sentiment analysis and we try to understand the opinion of people or the consumer on digital platform. And based on that, we classify this data into positive emotions, negative emotions, or neutral. Okay, we also do lots of semantic network analysis where graph theory is also involved. Okay, we are using the various graph theory models to understand those semantic networks. So all these methods are fine. So once you collect the data from the social media platform, okay, and you use your sentiment analysis, NLP, then and classify the emotions, that is fine. But at the same time, there are some challenges and difficulties when you see somebody has written in the review forum about a product or service, thank you so much for your product and service. So this thank you so much for your product and service, it's very difficult to classify it into positive emotions and negative emotions, because he might be writing it sarcastically also, right? So marketers, so I'll tell you, like, there are companies, unicorns in the market, they're providing this kind of information to their clients, and their clients are like big guys, right? I told you some of the names of those clients, and they do this kind of work, right? Now coming to those young researchers doing cognitive science research, now coming to the opportunities in this area, there are immense opportunities in these areas. So I told you, sentiment analysis will not only give you the exact mood of the people or opinion of the people or opinion of the consumer. What is is needed is to fuse this kind of data, the sentiment score data or opinion data, with neuroimaging data, okay, like EEG or eye tracking data. So if there are multimodal schemes where you are fusing this sentiment score data with the data from neuroimaging field, then I think it will give you a robust understanding about how people perceive about a particular product or services. Okay, so they also use lots of neuropsychological or psychological hack to play with consumers' mind, right? Amazon will write, "Hurry up, only 2 items left." Do you really think that Amazon will have only 2 items left? So human brain is evolved in such a way that they give importance to something which is in scarcity, right? So this is something which marketers, they leverage. There is psychological pricing also. So these are the stuffs they use. So we do what we try to understand. Human emotion is very complex. You cannot simply use language data from the public platform and try to make sense out of those data and classify those data into positive emotions and negative emotions. So it's a sentiment analysis, is the method of analyzing consumer emotion from their review. Okay, and this type of analysis heavily relies on writing skills of consumers. Most of this data are unstructured data, grammatically incorrect data on the public platform. Okay, so the need of the hour is you have to do what? You have to integrate the consumer metrics from EEG signals with consumer sentiment score, which will give you a multimodal scheme and which can be used to understand them better. Okay, and what it does, it generates comprehensive and reliable measures as 2 input modalities offset each other's drawbacks. Also, marketers can devise new strategies to develop and customize their product and services. So I hope I answer your question, Nithin. Over to you.
Thank you, Veeky. Yeah, just one last question. I think I know that you're also a mathematician, right? I mean, you've done your PhD work in graph theory, right? So you mentioned about graph theory. So I think especially for the young people in the crowd who are mathematicians or who have mathematical background, how do you think that graph theory and other discrete mathematical models could help in understanding the brain's topology?
Yeah, again, it's a very nice question. And I think graph and networks. So we have lots of human brain data about brain structure and function, but we have a very poor understanding about the relation between the network structure and the function. So graph theory, it provides some tools to understand the relationship between the network structure and the function. So, and also coming back to cognition is a highly distributed and dynamic process, and it depends on coordinated interaction between many regions of the brain. So different regions of the brain can be nodes. Okay, so graph, that it is collection of vertex and edges, or nodes or edges. So the good thing about these discrete mathematical models or graph theory model is that when you convert the neuroimaging data into graphs and networks, then it becomes amenable to different kinds of mathematical analysis. You can construct urgency list, urgency matrix, cycle matrix, path matrix. You can do centrality analysis. You can do eigenvector centrality analysis, or you can do between a centrality analysis. So there are lots of work people have been doing in dementia research where they analyze fMRI data. They convert the EEG data or fMRI data into graphs and networks, and then they try to understand it, develop new mathematical models to gain better understanding about how brain works. So when the beauty of this conversion, the conversion means when the biological information, you have the brain. So all biological networks are like real world network. They follow power law distribution, and they are characterized by the presence of hubs. So when this complex brain network data is converted into the language of simply vertex and edges, or vertex or the links, then it reduces the complexity, and it helps in understanding how, it will give you some better understanding about some patterns, and so the way forward is to look some alternative mathematical models where you can use these to understand how the human brain works. So thank you. Over to you, Nithin.
Yeah, thank you, Veeky. That was wonderful.
Okay. So thank you everybody for your patience. Now it's my turn. I'll have some questions for Nithin and Nithin, I think we are meeting second time. We were a part of one international conference where we were discussing data issues in cognitive neuroscience, right? And that was a wonderful session. Thank you so much for that, and thank you for accepting my, invitation for that. So, Nithin, please tell us the current research that is happening in your lab at NIAS Bangalore.
Yeah, thank you, Veeky. Yeah. So yeah, as I said in the introduction as well, that I work in the consciousness studies program in NIAS. It was actually started way back in 1992 by the late Professor B.V. Srikantan, who was actually an eminent physicist. And at that time, there were not many groups in India or abroad. I mean, very few people working on consciousness from a scientific point of view. Now, of course, there are a lot more groups working on it. And we have come a long way since then. And currently, the program is headed by Professor Sangeeta Menon, who's a philosopher. And my area of interest lies in the intersection of three different topics. So I thought I'll just share very briefly. Just give me a minute. I'll just share a slide. Okay. Is it visible?
Yes, yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So I call it the incompatible trinity of the 21st century. It's very easy to remember: A, B, and C. A for AI, B for brain, and C for consciousness. And you notice that each of them are a flourishing discipline of their own, right? A lot of work is going on, but there is tensions in the edges, in the convergence between the two, between each pair. And that's why it's an impossible triangle. And just to sort of very briefly summarize the kind of problems that we are interested in, I know that this looks like bad news, but actually it's good news, right? Because young scholars, researchers, students in the audience, they'll be very happy to note that there's a lot of work to be done, So if you look at, for example, the AI brain edge, right, in this incompatible trinity, current AI is nowhere close to the complexity of the brain in terms of its architecture, nowhere close to the performance which the brain is able to perform. The carbon footprint that is generated by current AI is laughable, and it's not at all sustainable. So the thing that we are interested in our group is we need to learn from the brain. Of course, it is true that, as you rightly mentioned, that the AI that we use today, deep learning, is inspired by the brain, but I think we can do a lot better than that. Now, come to the brain consciousness link. Again, this is actually a highly controversial or debatable kind of things. That does the brain produce consciousness, or is the brain just a modulator of consciousness? This is again a very, very difficult problem to solve. Again, it's a good news for the young people because a lot of work to be done. And last but not the least, the consciousness AI link. Of course, we talk about all these smartphones, and we have which are supposed to be intelligent, but are they really intelligent? Are they just doing some processing, which are information manipulation? But do they understand what they're doing? Because we as humans, we claim that we understand, and only an understanding is a mark of intelligence, right? So these are the kind of problems that our lab is interested in. And so that is the kind of work that that interests us. And I think there's a lot of good news in the sense that a lot of work to be done, actually,
Good. Thank you, Nithin. So I know for a younger researcher here, so could you also talk about consciousness? So what is consciousness?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So, okay, now consciousness is a very interesting thing in the sense that we all of us are, you can say, we know intimately what consciousness is. For example, the audience is listening to my voice. They're looking at some visual perception. There are thoughts going on. Maybe they have a thought, oh, what will I have for dinner tonight? They're getting bored, maybe, or whatever, So it is a conscious experience, right? The reality of, there's an element of reality to this experience, right? It's actually even simpler than that, right? We all understand consciousness because it's very intimate to us. And the common name for consciousness is the pronoun I, right? I mean, we say I. Now, that is actually consciousness. So paradoxically, it is something which is very intimate. It is what we are. But the paradox lies in the fact that from a scientific point of view, we don't really know how to measure consciousness, how to model consciousness. And you can't do science if you can't measure it, right? That's the problem. I mean, you could measure brain activity, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're measuring consciousness directly, So this is the paradox, that we know consciousness intimately as the first person experience, the I that I am. But from a scientific point of view, from a philosophical point of view, we are nowhere close to being able to understand consciousness and model it. and measure it because it has a lot of clinical applications, right? You might have a person in coma or in a vegetative state or in a lockdown syndrome, and how do you sort of know that the person is having pain or not, for example, right? So again, these are exciting times because a lot of work to be done, but that is the paradox of consciousness. We are it, but we don't know what it is.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nithin. So, do you think AI can be a consciousness?
Yeah, so this is again one of those very tough problems, right? Because notwithstanding all the movies that we watch in Hollywood today, right? We watch Avengers and Ultron and Terminator, and we talk about all these machines taking over the world. But on a more serious note, I think philosophers and scientists are actually interested in this question, right? That can a machine be conscious? Can a machine claim the notion of I, the notion of the self, right? And again, we really don't know. I mean, right now, at least in my opinion, at least I can say that we don't understand consciousness to be able to answer that question. But also, I don't think we understand intelligence. So that's the other side of the coin, right? We don't understand consciousness, but we also don't understand intelligence, because the hallmark of intelligence is not just information processing, but it's about understanding, right? And we don't know how to model understanding. We don't know how to program understanding and put it in the machine, right? So it is again one of those problems which we have very little understanding about. And again, as I said, these are, I think, fascinating problems for young people to jump into. And we have a long way to go, I think, So I know that it's not an answer, but probably it's a question worth pondering for all of us together.
Okay. So thank you so much, Nithin. And I think we are done with that, right? And
yeah, I think we can open up for the chat, Shyam, right? So we will ask people to send in their questions, and then me and Vicky can maybe take a stab at them.
Have you got your questions, or shall we use that time as well? I've asked them to send questions to you or to Vicky, and both of you can handle it.
Sure.
Okay, so I have a question in the meantime to actually both of you. So we are, let's say from the attendance perspective, I see a triangle forming here where we are looking at both of you, probably at some point with a small linear distance in between, which probably is, depending on who sees it, is a small thing. I'm curious to find out whether it's consumer neuroscience or AI or any kind of discipline, what is the path, the challenging path that you think educational institutions should be taking to merge these line of thoughts?
Okay, so basically you're asking a question about how should one prepare themselves for the challenges which these topics pose to the current generation, right?
Absolutely. Modern AI and modern neuroscience, how do you bring them together?
Right. Yeah. Vicky,
Yeah.
you want to...
Yeah. So during the introductory session, I was talking about, so we need to allow the free flow of information from the both the field, right? And I also spoke about how neuroscience is inspiring AI, and at the same time how AI is advancing neuroscience research to help us understand how the human brain works. And so the need of the hour is to allow it's integration of people from AI field and neuroscience field should interact more, and there should be more interactions and sharing of knowledge and flow of information from both the field, so that it will enrich both the field, I think. And that's what I would like to say. And anything more if you want to add, Nithin, go ahead.
Yeah, Vicky, no, I completely agree with what you're saying, that we need these dialogues, interdisciplinary dialogues, absolutely. Shyam, the other thing I also would like to add to this is that we need to challenge the norm, I remember this a few years ago, 2018, there was a conference on AI where Jeffrey Hinton, right, the godfather of deep learning, he was saying that, look, new developments will happen when you radically have new ideas. You need to challenge the norm, right? Only then you need an Einstein, you need a Ramanujan to come to the field. So are we doing that in our education? Are we asking students to ask fundamental questions, and to do that, they need to be trained, right? Like Veeky was talking about graph theory. No, probably, graph theory or calculus, these are probably not very fashionable today. You would like to work with the Python, you would like to work with deep learning, that's fine. But I think we need to go back to the basics, like what Veeky was saying about graph theory, and we need to train students to work with the hard math, the physics, the biology, philosophy of science, philosophy as well. Ask tough questions, and I don't know whether we are doing that enough. And we're just helping them do projects, and I mean, the projects are fine, but the everything lies in as Hinton said, that we need radically new ideas. We need to start over from again. We need to start thinking from basics, So I would stress on the fundamental nature of things, how to train students to ask questions fundamentally,
Yeah, to add to what Nithin was telling, I'd also like to add, Sam, that in current generation, I have seen people are very excited about artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, reinforcement learning, stuff like that. But when you tell them to read neurobiology, and when you tell them to read neuroanatomy or cognitive neuroscience of memory, attention, emotion, I think we have to make it more interesting for them, so that you will get more takers for that. Otherwise, it is very difficult. So they are deviating and they're saying, no, it's a fashion fad to get into artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, and all kind of learning. But real learning, if they want to do computational neuroscience, they have to understand basic neuroscience. So that I thought that I'd like to add that.
Thank you. I think there's another question for you from the panel.
Okay. How would you define intelligence? Okay. Yeah. So again, as I said earlier, that at least my understanding is that it's not just about information processing or or pattern recognition. That's a part of intelligence, but to me, it's about understanding. We understand something. For example, let's say I tell you a joke, right? You laugh because you understand the joke. But how do you model understanding, right? And that's the tough part, there may be a correlate of understanding in the brain. That's possible, but would that capture all aspects of understanding, or is there something over and beyond that? So the puzzle of intelligence would be the puzzle of consciousness as well. At least that's how I view it. And even the words like learning, and even Veeky was talking about this point, right? There are all kinds of terms now: reinforcement learning, deep learning. We use the word learning, but learning and the heart of learning is understanding, right? How do you model understanding? So we need, I think we need radically new ideas there, So yeah, Veeky, probably you can.
Oh, yeah. So like intelligence, I think to have self-awareness, and even people, like I would like to add that people are talking about they're excited about artificial intelligence, but I have not seen people getting excited about emotional intelligence, which is far more important than artificial intelligence, right? And so it's not like, if you have expertise in artificial intelligence or machine learning, deep learning, all kind of, technical stuff. But if you are not having emotional intelligence, or you are not emotionally intelligent, that will not take you that far. So self-awareness, then understanding of, your how you perceive things, all these things matters a lot. And emotional intelligence is also very important at this juncture.
Thank you. That was a question from Valsla Nema, who from the group who had sent it. So we've been sending that question. On a very different thing, very different note, there's another question. I'm going to throw it as it is. How do you think product choices will be different if we have neuroscience-based guidance into that process?
So, product, like you are talking about the product, right?
I'm assuming it's generic, yes. Could be any product, yes.
Okay, so it's related to the consumer neuroscience you're talking about, right? Yeah. So I'll tell you now, I think some 2 weeks back or 3 weeks back, Facebook, or I think they're no more called Facebook, they're Meta now, right? And they are going to, get into this virtual reality stuff, right? So it is going to change the way you do marketing, or the way you go to physical store and buying stuffs, okay? So they are using neuroscience. They are using, when we talk about augmented reality, so it is enhancing the user's perception of reality. Okay. When we talk about augmented reality or virtual reality, so in augmented reality, it's enhancing the user's perception of reality. So if you want to go to, if you want to buy a Reebok shoe, you don't have to go to a brick mortar Reebok shoe store. You sit at home, get immersed in that particular environment, and you will feel like you are wearing and feeling you are in that immersive environment, that you'll feel like that I am wearing the Reebok. You get the different kind of feel. This is what augmented reality or metaverse is going to do. Everything will be virtual. So you are sitting at Amrita Vidyapeetham, and if you want to immerse in the BITS-Pilani Goa campus environment, you can get into that digital avatar, and then you get into that. So the future of marketing and the product experience, everything is going to change when they are integrating smart AI and augmented reality based tools. So you'll have different experience when you are buying things. As of now, you get 3D image from every side. You can see and feel the product. But once it is there, right, you have augmented reality based solution for doing and purchasing stuffs on digital platform. So people will get immersed into that particular environment, and it enhances the user's perception of reality, and people will certainly, they'll have different perception about that service and product. So that is what I can add, that how neuroscience also, like, all marketers, I don't know, there is a question of business ethics also when we talk about buying stuffs on digital platform. Amazon, they are using they have hired lots of top neuroscientists and psychologists to do your psychological profiling from your digital platform, and they use different kinds of psychological hacks to influence your buying behaviors. And there is also concept of conversion rate optimization. Okay, so they use, like, if you go to some digital platform and if you're buying something, and if you have to click some 10 clicks to buy a single product, then it gives cognitive load to the brain. But if it is just 2 clicks and you buy and finish, then, so these are the things they keep in mind while designing that portal. Aesthetically, design wise, there is a science, neuroscience behind color also, right? So what kind of color, background color they use. So that also is very, very important in understanding consumers' perception or how they perceive about a particular product or service.
Shyam, I have got a few questions.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, Amarnath asked this question. Can you briefly outline the current major attempts or theories of consciousness, the strengths and weaknesses, and which of them look most promising? Of course, this is a huge question. There are at least 10 to 15 theories of consciousness, scientific theories of consciousness. So I'll keep the answer very brief. You can look up integrated information theory of consciousness. It's becoming very popular. Personally, I have some favorites as well, like Donald Hoffman, cognitive scientist in UC Irvine. He talks about the interface theory of perception. So I mean, there is also this global workspace theory of Bernard Bars, and so there are several of them. So one has to probably read those papers, and this again goes back to what Shyam asked earlier, that you need, what's the education that you need to understand them? Good background in mathematics, neuroscience, neurophysiology, maybe, some of these concepts will help, so that you can deal with these theories head on. Yeah. One more question I got, Shweta Nagre. I think both of us could attempt at this. So the question is, on what level do you think programming knowledge is needed for the implementation of AI in neuroscience? Programming knowledge, she's asking. Veeky, you want to?
Yeah. So I think you need to know, like, mostly what we are doing, like for every work, I think you need to, it is required, to like you have your notebook, then you do lots of stuffs on Python, but you don't have to learn all languages, right? You have to, based on the context of your work, right? You have to see what is required, right? So you don't have to learn Java to do some basic work in deep learning here, right? You don't have to learn C++ to do basic work in deep learning and dementia detection. So this is what I can say at this juncture.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, Vicky. I completely agree with you. I think, yeah, Shweta, yeah, I mean, you start from where you are and then you pick it up, and yeah, that's absolutely right. But you can also ask fundamental questions, because the nature of programming itself, right? Maybe there is a different way to think about it. So it's one is of course at the level of applications, but one could also ask fundamental questions, right? Like as even Vicky was talking about emotional intelligence, and we talk about there's collective intelligence, and so how is programming implemented in biology, right? I mean, we have 3.8 billion years of evolution, and the brain has figured out programming or computing. So it's also important to ask questions at all levels. So I would encourage students to do that. So yeah.
Okay, so one question, I don't know, what is the recent trend in the field of cognitive science and projects, future opportunities in the field of cognitive science? So the best opportunities, I think it's for everybody. I'll tell you, I'm working with an industry, and we are into, providing marketing intelligence or insights. It's a cognitive neuroscience perspective as far as buying behavior or, people sentiment is concerned. So there are lots of opportunities in this field in cognitive neuroscience or cognitive science if you are getting and integrating with marketing, because I told you in the beginning that at the end, all top brains of the world, they are busy in doing one thing to make you click something. So, and make you to, leave one digital trail and then try to understand your sentiment and opinion. And based on that, they'll customize their product and services. And it might be unethical, but this is where opportunities are. And it's not only from the public platform, they will gather the information from, I told you that from sentiment analysis, they are to make it more reliable, right? The information which you will be providing for the market insights, to make it more reliable, you have to fuse this data with the neuroimaging data, like eye tracking data or EEG data, okay? And then that will give you, or it will be a multimodal scheme which can help you in understanding your consumer in a better way. So AI, neuroscience, and marketing, I think it's going to be a big thing in next 5 years. You can see that things are coming up. There are startups, they want to know the cognitive neuroscience perspective about people's, opinion and their perception about product and services. Why, if they are buying something, why they are buying something? Is there a buy button on their brain, right? So there are lots of opportunities in the field, not only this, like in cognitive science, only the area which I'm talking about. I am telling about this consumer neuroscience and marketing because I have seen industry guys are excited about this.
Yeah, I would just like to add to that. I mean, the experience that we have in our own lab, the group that we are working with is may not be I don't know whether it's a major trend or anything like that, but causality, and I know that it's a major trend in AI today, causal machine learning. But causality, even into trying to understand the functional connectivity, effective connectivity, functional connectivity in the brain, and causality in cognitive neuroscience is a very tough problem. How do you determine causal connections, causal influences, causal complexity? That's a problem that as a group we are looking at. It's a very tough problem because there is all these spurious, ambiguous inferences that we can draw. So we need robust techniques and methods to be able to do that. And if you do a good job there, then your network neuroscience can actually flourish, right? Because the networks that we learn from the data, it could be EEG, MRI, fMRI data, it's based on causal inference, right? It's based on causal connections between different parts of the brain. So if you don't do a good job in learning the connections correctly, then you further downstream, your inferences are going to be wrong. So I find that there's a lot of interesting problem to look at in the causality. Same thing with ML also, machine learning. It's no more about, it's called the causal revolution, right? That we want to go beyond correlations. We want to know the cause-effect relationship when you do an intervention in the world, right? So I think even when it comes to, I think, marketing, Vicky, I think like you do an intervention by branding or whatever, what is the causal influence of that? And can ML help there? So causal ML is a big field. So yeah.
So we have one more question, that is, I would like to know how to deal with data collected from parents of ASD children It is a challenge in terms of reliability. Yes, I agree. In general, research on children is limited using advanced assessment techniques. Thanks. So I don't know. It's it's a challenge, I think. And would you like to add anything on this, Nithin? Like
I'm not at all an
ASD
expert on this, but
I'm
you're
also
absolutely
not an
right. It
expert.
can be seen as an opportunity, you know. What you're saying is right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Shyam might.
Neither am I, but I would just say there are a lot of things that are in place to help these processes. And I mean, there are very good labs working on these kind of design-based methods to collect data. And several of these processes do help. If it is done with the right ethical methods, and if it is done with the right control structures and the statistics and what a normal ethical committee would ask, I think most of the data that is collected from these kind of scenarios becomes a bit more easier to use. Yet definitely data always poses challenges, and I'm going to say I am as blind as probably the next person who's not working on ASD. I don't work on ASD data collection, so I don't know how valid this would be as a question, but probably somebody else in the group can raise a comment or write in. And we have so many cognitive scientists in these meetings, and would be a nice thing to see what other groups have done and come back at an appropriate strategy. I have one question, Nithin, if that is okay for you, and
Please. Yeah.
I would assume, what would be the most simplest way to mock, to fake, or to imitate what is called consciousness in a classroom example? When people talk about, when undergraduate students talk about consciousness, and how I know that you also work on Indian thought schools of consciousness. So what is the difference that you see in the implementations when it comes to computational principles underlying those kind of concepts?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think, the East and the West, right? You can, if you can think of it that way broadly. My current understanding is that the Western approach, the materialist approach, the materialist physicalist worldview is very powerful because it gives us all the technological advancements, the tools, the quantitative measurements, and things like that. The complementary to that, the Eastern traditions are philosophically very rich. They ask the right questions, they have the right categories. So the philosophical, it could be Vedanta, it could be Kashmir Shaivism, it could be the Nyaya. I mean, it could be all the Darshanas. You know, they're very rich. They have the right language. They have the right logic as well. You know, you probably know that the logic in the Indian logic is much more finely. It has much more finer resolution than the Aristotelian logic, for example. So I see that as a complementary thing. You know, that you can benefit by the Western methodology in terms of quantitative experimentation, theorizing, and the math stuff, and building technologies. But you can also benefit by the philosophical richness of our culture, very, very rich philosophically. And I think we need both hand in hand to be able to attack this problem of consciousness, So that is the general answer I would give. And now coming to the classroom, I think, see, the main problem is, that in all of our training, it's all outward directed, right? I mean, so this is where meditation helps, right? Meditation is nothing but introspection, right? You need to be able to, anything that you study, right? You need to be able to pay attention to it, right? I mean, if you're studying butterflies, you go to the field and you study butterflies, right? Similarly, you are going to study the mind, you're going to study consciousness. You need to train students to be able to have this introspective, reflective exercises. I mean, meditation is the word, but you could also say it's an experiment, right? It's a scientific experiment. So in the classroom, I think we need that kind of an engagement, because we're always doing things outside. But how do you observe your thoughts? How do you observe the content of consciousness? How do you observe, is the content of consciousness the same as consciousness? I don't think so, right? Because a thought cannot think, right? A thought cannot have a feeling, right? It's something else which is having a thought. It's something else which is having a feeling. But I think we need this ability to be able to do meditation in the classroom. You don't have to call it as meditation. You could call it as a scientific experiment that you're doing, observing the phenomenon that you want to model. And in this case, it happens to be consciousness, which is the most intimate thing, right? So I don't know. I mean, that's the way to go about, I would say,
Thank you. We have closely 5 minutes. I think the stage is yours to bring in the discussions. If there are no more further questions, I don't see any more in my chat.
Yeah, I got just a question just now. Vidisha Golecha can we be conscious about only one thing at a time or more? So can we be conscious about only one thing at a time or more? Vidisha, my answer to this is, I mean, I may be wrong. My opinion is that a human mind, right? I mean, or a human access to human mind is that we are only conscious of only one thing. But there could be other minds. There could be other instruments of perception which could probably do more than one thought at a time. But I think, or one perception at a time. But I think that's the limitation of the human mind, right? And that's the notion of time as well, because we have this notion of sequential ordering of perceptions and experiences, thoughts, feelings, sensations, perceptions, and we can only do one at a time, and that gives the feeling of time as well. But there could be other minds, other beings, which I'm being a total scientific agnostic here. We don't know. There could be other minds which are capable of holding two thoughts at a time. Why not? I mean, I don't see anything a priori mind not being able to do that. I think it should be possible. I think, yeah.
Okay, so is it, if you make a common statement, my last 1 minute question, if you make a common statement, a punch dialogue kind of a statement, what would be your point on what ACCS should be also doing? You have been a host, Veeky, so you should take the chair first.
So in the what ACCS should be doing,
where did we go wrong, or where did I not take the thing right more strongly?
No, so this event, like the ACCS8 you are talking about, right? 8th ACCS.
Sure.
It was wonderful, Sam. And first of all, I'd like to thank you and congratulate you to, I can understand that, it's not that easy to, organize this and that too. You can think about the thought process of people because of this COVID situation right now, right? In spite of all these challenges, organizing this event in such a way and in a beautiful way, I think it's not that easy. And working in a team late night, I could see, your posts and on social media, because I do lots of social media analytics. So I could see the ACCS post also. And it's not that easy, Sam, because, people say that doing physical, conferences, it's easy, it's tough, but I'll say that doing online conferences is more challenging than physical, conferences, because of we were never used to, we never thought that we'll be doing ACCS in this virtual mode without the live audience, right? So doing things in virtual mode is now more challenging than doing things in physical mode, right? So we were never used to this, and very soon we adapted to this. And congratulations once again in organizing such a beautiful event. And both the day I attended one session yesterday also, and there were very good participation, and hope to see more effort from you in future as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Nithin?
I completely agree with Veeky. I mean, I think you should celebrate the success, and it's a very, very well organized event, and I mean, I think it's a great treat for all especially the younger audience, right? Because you give, and the best thing is it was all free. I mean, how many conferences today are free with the kind of galaxy of speakers that you had? I mean, experts, and it's quite amazing. I mean, you hats off to that. And maybe if at all, you probably should tell the next committee how to do it. So that's I go with what Veeky is saying. Just to conclude, I would just tell the audience, especially the younger people in the audience, that what V.S. Ramachandran, in his, the author of This Phantom of the Brain, he made this point that brain science is still at a Faraday stage of evolution. Every science has different stages of evolution, and brain science is still a very early stage of evolution. Okay, we don't know the loss of the brain. So remember that we have a long way to go as a community. We have really very little understanding of the brain, which is a good news, because all of you have a lot of work to do. So, I think it's very, very optimistic in that sense, that a lot more work has to be done, and I see that we can only go up from here. Yeah, thank you.
That was an extraordinary session, full of knowledge and interesting information. Thank you so much, Professor Nithin Nagaraj and Professor Veeky Bas, for this wonderful session. It was really interesting to know that graph theory can help us in understanding the network structure, functions, and study patterns of how the human brain works, and also about the ABCs, AI, brain, and consciousness, and their relation. The most important thing when you are a student is that you should be able to interact with people like you. We should get a chance to listen to such valuable talks, works, and research to know the current research and trends. And I'm so sure that all young researchers and students from the audience of ACC8 must be feeling so lucky that we are having this opportunity to listen to you by being here at our home, at our places, and we're listening to you. And it was really very inspiring session, especially for all the students. Challenging the normal and asking the fundamental questions. These 2 points can inspire us to question ourselves that what are we doing today to contribute to research as a students. Thank you so much once again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahima. Thank you, Shyam. Thank you, Vicky.
Thank you. Thank you, Shyam. Thank you, Nithin. Thank you, Mahima.